And who is this distinguished
Unmute.
gentleman I'm looking at?
Unmute.
Is this Nana
Yes, it
Oppong?
is muted. Yeah, Nano Oppong.
All
Can
right,
you see me now?
wonderful. I can see
Assalamu
you very
alaikum.
clearly. Alaikum salam. It's a pleasure and an honor meeting
Yes,
you.
yes, yes, brother.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
have I
So,
have watched your interviews and I've followed you on many programs, and Alhamdulillah, you are
Alhamdulillah.
doing
Okay.
very well.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very,
The
very much. I'm very,
Jesus,
very honored.
what's interesting is Jesus. Yeah. All right.
Yes. Go right ahead.
Yeah, I was just saying that Nabi Isa, Jesus said, the harvest is plenty, but the workers
The
are
work is a
few.
few. That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of work for us to do, but
Yes, there
there's not a lot
is.
of people. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes, there is. But our Creator, He prepares us for these things. Um, so we just have to get more involved in the preparation. The ones who are caught blindsided are the ones who are not preparing. And
Yeah.
it's really not a matter of how many people get involved in the work. It's a matter of how diligent you are in the work and seeing the work through to its completion. So let me just say at the onset that it is an absolute pleasure and an honor to meet you. I've done some reading up on what you've been doing in Ghana, and I am extremely impressed.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
I
Thank
am
you.
very, very impressed. And at some point, I guess we can speak about a few of the things that are going on in that part of the world. And
Yes.
one of my desires during this interview is to find out a little bit more about what is happening with our brothers and sisters in that part of the world. Ghana
Yes.
occupies a very important part of the lineage of the African and the African American and the connection from continental Africa to these United States of America. And we speak about Senegal a lot. We speak about, Kenya quite often, but a lot of people are not aware of the direct connection between Ghana and the diaspora. So
Yes.
I may slip in a couple of questions related to that if
No
you don't
problem.
mind.
No problem. No
Yes.
problem. Yeah.
Okay, and we have our brother here, Nadeem Haque, who
Yeah.
has been with us before, an excellent, excellent scholar. So it is again my pleasure. As you know, I operate what is called the University Online Learning Course, which teaches a unique linguistic science called Nunetics. I'm happy that both of you are at least marginally familiar with what it is we do. And when people ask me what it is we do, I tell them we do letters. That's all. We just
Mhm. Mhm.
But behind that, they have to understand that those letters hold the insight into how to properly understand, first and foremost, the Quran and its signature Arabiya um, presentation. That they're not just letters, they're not just squiggly lines on a page. What I found them to be is actually representations of things in nature, in Mother Nature. So, because of that finding, we no longer have to be relegated only to the people who are scholars and people who study the language on a professional level. We can, as regular people, begin to gain insight into the Quran simply through the study of what Muhammad the Prophet and others studied. They had nothing to study but nature. And this is why the Quran, the Bible, and other very important books for humanity are uh, prominent in their display of certain words and certain characters and certain comparisons. The prophets talked about seeds and plants and trees and I mean all kinds of things that are found only in nature. So if they studied nature and gained insights, what's to stop us from studying the same nature? It's the same creation. It's the same creator. It's the same signals and signs and signatures that are left all over the place for us to study also. So it doesn't just have to be a degree from the University of, it can be a degree from our individual attention paid to the fitrah, as the Quran calls nature, the fitrah. So I'm not going to dominate this conversation. I want to hear from you guys.
Okay.
Let me just say this first of all about our special guest so that people who are not familiar with him, which is all of us at this point, can become a little bit more familiar with his position. And that is Nana is the president of the Distinguished Scholars of Africa. He's the professor at Knutsford University in Ghana, a Supreme Court lawyer. Well, we could use you here. A Supreme Court lawyer, and has a private law practice in Ghana. Wow. He graduated from the University of Toronto and Osgood Hall Law School. He is the author of numerous books on various areas, including biology and physics, which we're going to speak about also. One of those books is named Microbits, A New Unified Physics. My, oh my. And as I stated, joining him today will be our brother Nadeem Haque. And he was on our program, as I mentioned several months ago, and got raving reviews. I think they're still putting comments in the chat box about the time that he was on our program. And that was for his very deep insights into several of the sciences. We'll get into the details of that in a moment. But most of these gentlemen are scholars par excellence. And it is my pleasure to formally introduce them to our audience. So greetings. Salam alaikum to you both.
Wa alaikum salam.
وعليكم السلام وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
So, Nana, let me hear from you first about who you are and what you've been doing, and you. I mean, I'm playing down so far the true status that you occupy in Ghana and in scholarship, generally speaking. But I want to hear from you what you believe to be the most important aspects of your life work and what you will be doing from this point on.
I am, first of all, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. I'm very pleased to be here. I'm pleased that we are alive and conscious and intelligent and have the technology to be able to communicate. Nadeem and I, we are in Nadeem's house in Canada. You are in the USA, and technology allows us to do this. And I'm
Yes,
sure there are thousands and thousands of people with us in different places. That is a sign of God that He's able to create a world that works second after second, minute after minute, centuries and eons and eons. That proves His power and His reality as the God of everything. You know, the Quran says, and He's over all affairs competent.
yes,
What do I want to do? What is my role? I see myself as having a duty to use knowledge, relationships, and opportunities given to me to maximize goodness. I went to school in Canada. I grew up here in Canada, an excellent student, went to the best schools here. That's where I met Nadeem. He's been my friend and my brother at the University of Toronto. In fact, I was at the robots library just reading my books, and he came to me when I was in first year university. He said, "Do you want to go to an Islamic program?" I said, "Islamic program, why not?" And that's where we met, and then we went and we started talking about Islam. And I even met my wife through that program they introduced me to,
wow,
and he was there to help me to
nice,
get married. And so we've been
nice,
going for a
nice.
very long time. And microbial physics, we wrote it together. I'm now here in his house in Toronto. I left Canada for 17 years, never came back. When I came back now, I'm in his house. I'll be leaving back to Ghana very soon.
Mhm.
But what have I found? That there are three groups of people, or should I, three groups of creatures who are the underdogs on the planet: animals, women, and people of color. I repeat, animals, women, and people of color. And by people of color, I refer to mostly Africans, enslaved, colonized, dominated, victims of discrimination and other nonsense and unjust regimes oppressing them. And also, I find the devil is ruling the world in many different ways with deception. You know, the Quran calls the devil the chief deceiver.
Yes,
And a lot of people are suffering in the world because of evil, ignorance, oppression, injustice, and on and on and on. My duty is to help dismantle ignorance, evil worship, the dominance of oppression against everyone, in particular animals. What I mean animals, I mean nature, women, my mom, my sisters, our wives,
Yes.
our daughters, are all women. And people of color, I mean, everyone who's discriminated against and called untouchable, inferior because of their color, because of their skin, because of whatever. But they should know equality, justice, goodness is what he wrote. God didn't create oppression. God didn't
Right.
create poverty and suffering. Man imposed. But what do? The first thing that we have to do is figure out how to liberate ourselves, not just from history, but from reality. The reality of our own incompetence, self-imposed weaknesses, and the evil that comes to us through our nafs, through ignorance, and through idolatry. So my whole narrative is what I call narratives of competence. How do we become very competent so we can become the servant of God, so we can be free from oppression, so we can contribute towards the development of a better world? That's what I've been working on in books, in associations and organizations, all the things that I've been doing.
Well, that fits very neatly into the subject for today, which is education and intelligence. What a theme.
Yeah, yes.
So wherever you want to pick up, whatever word you want to begin with, uh,
All right.
the
So the
platform
first
is
thing is,
yours.
yes, Nadeem and I, we wrote a book many years ago, almost 20 years ago, on microbitic physics. We found out the reality was made up of God, and God creating everything from one thing. And that thing is not an atom, it's lesser than an atom at different levels called the microbit. And from there, from one thing only, he created all the things that you see, big and small, living and dead, black and white, all kinds of things. An amazing God who creates singularly by using only one thing to create the endless things. From there, we realize that in order to really know God, you have to have knowledge. Ignorance, foolishness, stupidity, incompetence will not make you close to God. And if you want to be free from oppression, if you want to be strong, if you want to develop, it's not a question of mantras and declarations.
Mm.
You have to be learned. So we've been interested in knowledge for a very long time. You know, Islam is all about knowledge. Read,
Yes.
ponder, reflect. Can't you see? Haven't you seen? What's wrong with you? Donkeys with books. The Quran is always complaining about ignorant
Yes,
people.
sir. Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
Quran says that the Muslims are those when they see the ignorant ones, they leave them and say, peace. Hasta la vista.
That's
So
right.
we have nothing to do with ignorance and stupidity and evil and all of that. Now, when I went to Ghana, I realized there was a problem. There was a problem with the educational system, not just for Ghana, but for the whole of Africa. And what is that problem? It is focused on certification. So people are learning so they can get certified doctors, lawyers, engineers, and so on and so forth. That type of program was instituted by the colonialists. They were not interested in thinkers and revolutionaries and leaders and creators and things. They were interested in followers. So it's a system of education that creates competent, what I call good enough education. So 60, 70% the work is done is good enough to go.
Mm.
But if you really want to be smart, you become a perfectionist, kind of as perfect as possible. And the elements and the attributes of perfection include completeness. When you start something, you complete it.
Mhm.
Continuity. Today,
Mhm.
you don't do something and tomorrow you don't do it. There is consistency. Third, there's what we call welfare contribution. Everyone that is smart contributes towards the welfare of the community. It's not just selfish, selfish, selfish. And number four, smart people actually create. They introduce new things, they improve, they evolve, they add to the pie of the community. They elevate humanity from one to more, to more, and to more. But that type of education is not something you inherit from the colonialists. It's something that you create as a group. You know, the Quran talks about al-asr. إن الإنسان لفي أسر إن
Mhm.
الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. With
Yes.
time, we all get lost. Everything that we do gets lost, except those who advise one another about truth. Truth means knowledge, facts, science, technique, skills.
Yeah.
So if you lack technique, knowledge, truth, and science and skills, you're going nowhere. But that type of education has to be nurtured by understanding that the child is not born with intelligence. The intelligence is a
Right.
capacity
All
that is
right.
developed.
Speaking my
It is
language.
developed by
Yes, sir.
the interaction between the environment, the harmonies, the language, the culture, the spirits, the rhythms, the possibilities that the child learns even in the womb before it comes out. A stupid family, stupid dialogue, stupid narrative, superstitious people, ignorant people, fighting people, conflict, violence, and so on. It all affects the ability of the child to become truly human and a genius. So then, how do we raise a child in a harmonious environment? An environment free of conflict, environment of justice and fairness and brotherliness and equality and harmony, of possibilities, of endless capacity. If we can do that, then the child will grow up being a genius, being brilliant. Then that child then becomes the Newton. That child then becomes Ibn Haytham. That child becomes the saint of Allah. That child then becomes Nadeem Haque or Nana Oppong or Bilal or whoever. But if we don't, we sit around and oh, read that book and you become an engineer, you become a lawyer, become all, then we're creating average people. But average people never make revolutions. They don't change anything and they're easily oppressed. So you see, when we want to change the world and we got a whole bunch of average people, we go nowhere.
Yeah.
That's why the
Agree.
revolution hasn't started because the leader may be average or above average, but his followers certainly are no brilliant geniuses. And what happens? They're easily confused, easily destroyed, and easily discouraged.
Would you
So
say
we
that
wanted
there's
to
a that there, would you say that there's a conscious attempt to keep the majority of people on that level of
absolutely,
yeah, yeah. Hmm.
absolutely.
Hmm.
But then there has to be a conscious attempt to negate and destroy that evil empire. And it doesn't happen if you sit down and just dream about it and just talk about it on air or in the schools. Allah, Allah. It doesn't. It's not about declarations, it's about action. Somebody said when I was a kid that the philosophers have talked about the world, but what we have to do is to change it. You change it with books, with programs like yours, with curriculum that changes, schools that teach differently, relationships that are nurtured on equality and brotherliness and godliness, relationships that are based on future and not just on the past, not on complaining, but finding solutions. You know the problem of the so-called dark-skinned people in the world. A lot of times the leaders co-opted by materialism, by luxury, and then by being deceived into thinking that they've been accepted, that everything's fine. And those leaders then get limousines and they get the drinks and they get all the things that they want and they get misled and they don't lead. And then when they're genuine leaders, when they come in the community, they find people in the community to betray them.
Yeah,
So you see,
yeah.
there ought to be a new way of looking at the world. And I think Islam offers a way, not typical nonsensical Islam as people
Okay.
postulated, but a
Okay.
true, genuine,
Yes,
one God, one authority, one Lord type, one humanity, one brotherhood, one destiny type of Islam where everyone is equal, subject to the same laws, no one above another. Color doesn't matter, gender doesn't matter, race doesn't matter, species doesn't matter.
that's right.
And where God is beautiful, God is strong, and God is just, and He's the one that we're going to, He was the one that brought us here. That type of education can start. We've started already. So I think the symphonic theory of intelligence is actually a beautiful theory that says from one God, you can be beautiful, you can be strong, you can be very intelligent, but you have to cooperate in goodness. You know, the National Chief Imam of Ghana and I, we wrote a book called The Quranic Principles for Economic Development for the World. We found three things. The key Islamic principles, which also the key biblical principles, which are number one, know good, knowledge of good. Number two, love good, don't love evil. And number three, do good. You
Ah,
know good, you
yeah,
love good, and you
yeah.
do good.
You gotta back it
And
up with
that's
the
what we
action.
wrote. So now I'll leave
Yeah,
it to my brother Nadeem to continue.
this is wonderful. And take your time. I don't have any time restraint. Whatever amount of time you can spend with us today, it'll be a blessing to those
Yeah.
who are able to hear this. Please go right ahead, Nadeem.
Yeah, I think Nana Bong should continue. Actually, he should explain the symphonic theory of intelligence. Maybe you can continue and just you mentioned it, but you didn't explain. You didn't get into it. Maybe you can do that. Then I
Yes,
can
yes.
comment.
All right.
All right,
Yeah.
yes. Yes, so the symphonic theory of intelligence is the idea that all of us are born with options of capacity. And so if you think of intelligence as a capacity, a number of capacities, a number of channels, from one being the least intelligent but still intelligent to infinity. So whether you get two intelligence, three intelligence, four intelligence, or infinity intelligence, depends on how you're raised in the environment. And some environments encourage excellent capacities, and some environments discourage excellence. Some environments encourage mediocrity, foolishness, wickedness, and so on. So the symphonic theory says if you want your child to be brilliant, then from childhood, open up the possibilities of goodness. You know, if a child grows up thinking there is an excellent God who cares, who's beautiful, who has excellent attributes, and that's our Father. That's our Lord. Jesus said, I'm going to my Father and your Father, my God and your God. If that is what the child's learning. And then we also know that God created a beautiful world where everything is ordered, logical, and sequenced, so that if this, then that. And the definition of intelligence is figuring out the next step from the existing step. And if the child gets to understand that possibilities are everywhere, and you can convert the dead into the living and the living into the dead, and all things are connected by order, by sequences, and that nothing is impossible. If you get the child to think that everything that came into the world has come through logic, through intelligence, through inspiration, and
Yeah.
what somebody has done, you can also do. You get the child to think that even the most brilliant person was born just like you, like everyone else, and then the color doesn't matter, gender doesn't matter, poverty doesn't matter, circumstance doesn't matter. And then as long as you are smart and you work very hard and you follow and obey the God, you too can be brilliant, you too can be genius, you too can make a difference, you too can become a leader. That is a symphonic idea. If a child is raised in that environment where the parents are not fighting or oppressing one another, where the father is not being the Lord and oppressing the woman, where the woman is given access to education, raised well, loved, supported as a sister, as a mother, as an aunt, as a daughter, if all of that happens when the child's growing up, then the child will be brilliant. Then the child will be strong. Then, in terms of intelligence, the child will acquire the maximum capacity of the channels. So when the child's growing up, he's already set for brilliance. The reverse is true. A child brought up in oppression, fighting family, drunkenness, all kinds of problems, discrimination. That child has no chance of being intelligent. So then what happens is that child will end up not being brilliant. And because they're not brilliant, they will always suffer. They always suffer. And I think most of the problem that we have as dark-skinned people in the world is because a lot of our children are raised up in environments that do not encourage brilliance, environments that restrict brilliance, that create superstition, that create narrow-mindedness. So they're not able to look at the sky and beyond. The Quran says they cling to the earth. They think within. They limit themselves. They don't see the light. They see darkness and shadows. And they think the whole world is dark. They think the world is evil. They don't see any God. They don't believe in any future. And all they believe in are complaints and histories of oppression. Whereas there's a future of liberation. They don't look at the future and say, let's move towards the light into a future of liberation. Let's work together as brethren. They fight one another because all they know is conflict. All they know is violence. All they know is hopelessness. The symphonic theory of intelligence reverses that by saying, let us raise children with hope, with logic, expand their horizons, give them maximum number of books to read. Don't let them watch stupid programs on TV or TikTok or wherever it is that it's called. Open your minds, open your hearts. Let them be scientists and do logic and mathematics and biology and physics and law and philosophy and Islam and Christianity and Judaism, whatever. Add all of it. They have the capacity. Don't limit their
Yes.
capacities. And then you will see brilliance comes out of abundance. And so the symphonic theory says we can do it, but it has to be a systematic program of education that nurtures brilliance, that removes obstacles, that gives them hope and optimism based on the fact that you haven't seen nothing yet. Somebody said music, the
Yes.
world is huge. The world is
That's
huge.
right.
And so we should encourage the world, the children to see a huge world where the God is here and the possibilities are endless. And it doesn't matter what happened to you 400 years ago. The world's bigger than
Thank
400
you.
years ago. It
Thank
doesn't what
you.
happened to you when you were a slave. You are free now. And if you continue to believe you are free, then your children's children will no longer have a history of slavery, but a history of freedom. And that will be the new narrative. But we can't go on talking about the past,
Yeah.
discrimination,
Yeah.
and we suffered, and so
Mm.
on and so forth. The thing is, you can change the world, but you first have to change yourself. And that's what we wrote.
Fact. It's wonderful. Wonderful. So you're talking about a latent potential that is in every human being, that all it needs to be is in the proper environment for nurturing, just like the average plant. You can't just take a seed and throw it anywhere, and we can't take our minds, we can't take our children's minds and just place them anywhere in any environment, as you said, the environment of TikTok and, all of these other uh, uh, um, information portals, let's call them. That's without giving them any slant. We can't just take our children's minds and put them in those kinds of portals and expect for them to be successful when you don't know the outcome of the information that you're serving them. Just like going to a
Exactly.
restaurant and you don't know what kind of food this is. You could be
Yes.
severely allergic to what you're about to, bite into. So unless we do some cursory study of the information that we are ingesting and that we are allowing our children to just, without uh, any kind of guard being up about what they're learning, we just send them to these schools and let the teachers do what they want to do. And when the child comes back, a promoter of some other agenda, whatever it might be, the gay agenda or the whatever kind of agenda is out there being taught by these individual teachers, and actually being inculcated into the curriculum itself, that is not just anti-black, quote unquote, but anti-human. Much of this is anti-human. It's against the growth of the true human as God created the human being to be. If we're born to be respectful, if we're born to be compassionate, if we're born to be curious minded, then these are the things that need to be nurtured. And people might say, well, how do you know, that that's the nature of because look at the baby. Your benchmark is the infant. You know, the infant might kick and fuss and scream and holler and all of that, but that's only when they're in an uncomfortable position. They're hungry, they're thirsty, they're uncomfortable, they're overheated or they're not heated enough and you need to turn up the heat or something, then the baby's going to kick and scream until you satisfy that particular level of its need. And that's how it is for most of us. If you see people out here who are kicking and screaming, it's because they're not in their natural environment as human beings. And the
And
human
what's
being,
what's
hmm go right ahead.
what I found interesting was that depending on how you're brought up, then your capacities get limited or expanded. So, for example, there are children who are born with one channel of intelligence, and that becomes a language. And there are others who have 10 channels, 20 channels, 50 channels, 100 channels, 1,000 channels. And the one who has one channel of intelligence, which means very, very low IQ, that language then becomes a translator. So whenever you're trying to talk to that person from another channel or 50 channels or 50 intelligence, they don't understand it because they have to translate your intelligence into their stupid mind. And they cannot do that.
Yeah, they're competing. Yeah,
So you
compete. Yeah,
try to talk to them about 1 + 1 = 2 + 2, and they're not listening to you, not because they don't want to, because they don't understand what you're talking about. It's too
yeah,
high for them.
yes,
So
yes.
what we need to do is expand the possibilities at childhood, because once you reach a certain stage, I think by the time you reach teenage, it's finished. If you don't make the children to have excellent capacities when they're young, then they acquire an intelligence which is equal to some kind of a level of stupidity. So that means whatever school you give them, whatever education you give them later on, it will not work because they have maxed out their potential. Their brain has acquired a mind that is very, very limited. And if you think of ruling people, then you want the vast majority of people to be that stupid because then it's easy to control them.
Very easy.
So what we have to do is look at how we raise our children, how we educate people. And I'll say to you, a child is not too young to learn the greatest theories in the world. Just keep on doing it. Let them
Hmm.
learn most
Hmm.
complicated things. And eventually you will see they will become the most brilliant ones. And so, unless we start changing the world through the children, we can never change the world because the world is always made up of grown-up children. So if the children are dumb, then they become dumb grown-ups. You know, in the law, we have something which is a Latin phrase, nemo dat quod non habet, which means you can't give what you don't have. And if the children are dumb children, when they grow up, they cannot get intelligence. They're still dumb. A lot of people are victims of miseducation and undereducation. A lot of people are victims of conflicts and oppression. A lot of people are victims of reading the wrong books and going to the wrong schools. A lot of people are victims of being led by wrong leaders and wrong mentors and imams and pastors and
Yes.
teachers and all kinds of things.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of work to do. And I
Mhm.
find that it is not enough to simply say, oh, let us change, let us complain. Islam is the best, Christianity is the best, Judaism is the best. No, no, it's not all about claims. What are you doing about the child under your control? Is she or he going to be smart, or is she or he going to be dumb? And if you have dumb fellows, you can never get authority to change the world.
Mhm.
And I think
Seems,
at this point,
yeah.
I've been having all
Mhm.
these discussions with my brother Nadeem, and he's got some very
Yeah.
good insights.
Please.
He's writing a book, in fact, called Psychitab, which is about the Islamic way of dealing with psychiatry and psychology. And a lot of it is very, very important, especially in a world where a lot of people are going crazy. We need
Yeah.
Islamic
As we
perspective.
speak. Yeah. So let's hear from him.
Yeah, so first of all, I just want to comment on something that Brother Bilal, you've said many times, about signs. And, reading is not just reading a book, but reading the signs. When you look at this, like, let's say someone is really ill and the doctor comes and he says, I can read from your, what's happening to you that, you have X, Y, Z. He's not reading a book, he's looking at the signs, right?
Yes. Yes.
So, and the
Correct.
Quran, it just talks of signs, signs. So some people are illiterate, those who don't believe in Allah, because they don't read the signs or they ignore them. So these people are really illiterate. You could have a so-called illiterate person who doesn't read like a book, cannot read, but he knows that there's a creator. He knows, the cause and effect. He's thankful to Allah. He's grateful to Allah. And this person actually is intelligent, right? The way Muslim is talking. He's using his mind. He may not know how to read, but like books, but he knows, right? So I think that's one thing. And the other thing is that brother Nana Pong and I, what we were, it sounds kind of funny, but we were thinking of writing a book called Stupidology, how stupid logic governs the world and what to do about it.
Mm.
Because, like when you look at the Quran, it's actually talking about stupidology, like, okay, how come, you're saying this about the Prophet when he's this, like, it doesn't make any sense, or yeah, it's always saying, why do you say this? Why do you, it's showing that, people do not use logic properly. They don't connect things properly. And that ties in with the symphonic theory of intelligence. And I used to, when I was reading Ibn Rushd, the great Muslim thinker,
Yes.
and he was saying that the Quran is for real philosophers, very deep thinkers, and but the rest of the people, we just give them the basic stuff. And I used to think this guy, okay, I mean, he's very smart, but he's being an elitist.
Mm.
Like, how can he say that? But the more I interacted with people, the more I realized that a lot of people don't want to go, into things deeply, you know. And as a result, then they end up with a lot of stupid conclusions. And the mind that the Quran builds is very different than the mind that, for example, someone is putting hadith above the Quran or something. The Quran, it makes you think rationally, it makes you explore, it makes you check things, right? It makes you look at the linguistics. It
Yes.
develops your mind, right? So really, the Quran is the basis for I believe, developing the mind and developing the educational system. Uh, we can talk about a lot of things, developing a governmental systems too. You know that the surah on Al-Naml and Al-Nahl, actually they're
Mhm.
talking about how to develop a governmental system,
Mhm.
for
Yeah.
mankind
Yeah. But they
that
would
is
have us believe
centralized,
it's
but
just talking about ants and bees.
yeah. No, it's talking about wahi,
It
and
is.
we're supposed to follow wahi. What is our wahi? It's the Quran, right? And if we have the centralization concept that Allah is the sovereign, not some king, ruling in the Middle East or something, then we're actually following the system that the bees and the namal, they're following. and even how they make decisions about things, like they verify, they confirm things. Like, bees, when they're looking for a new nest, they actually go and teams go and then they do dances on the bodies of the other bees, and then those bees, then they go and verify if the site is good. They check, right? Because the idea of verification is very important. Islam is based on amana, right? Iman.
Yes.
So I think that these are kind of our Muslim community is way, way, way behind because they have stopped thinking, and now it's time to really wake up.
Yeah.
And as far as microbits goes, that indeed is the true unification of physics, and inshallah, it's going to come out, and people are going to come to it because already now they're kind of coming to it. There are recent books, for example, written by in the West.
Hmm.
And they're actually coming to this conclusion of the microbits. But Alhamdulillah, we have it and we came there first. It came to us first, so it's there now. And I think that Allah allowed this to happen because who was it that brought science in the first place? The experimental science. It's the Muslims, right? So now it's coming full circle. It's coming full circle now. And it's very hopeful. I feel very hopeful for the future. Next 50 years, inshallah.
Yes, yes. And you should, and I
Yeah.
feel the same way about nunetics that you're
Yes.
feeling about microbits, that
Yeah.
it's it's new only in the sense that this generation or these generations of people are just hearing about it. But I know that in the history of Muslims themselves, they were very deep thinkers as far as what letters meant. They understood that
Yeah.
there were meanings for each letter, and it's even given in certain hadith
Yeah.
that, alif, lam, mim is not just letters, but they have meanings, they have significance, they have importance, you know, and the entire Western world teaches their children based on a letter system. They begin us with A, B, C, D, E, F, G. But how many of our students have ever learned that A has a meaning in English,
Mm.
that B has a meaning? Why is it called B? Why is it drawn like it's drawn? What is that? You know,
Yeah.
see that capital B, and why is English practically the only language system with a capital and small letter system? There are no
Mm.
capital letters in Arabic. Yeah. Why are we going around with a capital? Because we were dealing with capitalized people who
Mm.
were actually sending messages to each other about how they were going to continue to keep the rule. So A is more like the pyramid, with the Fir'aun, with the pharaohs and those people who were in positions of rulership, you know.
Mm. Interesting.
And
Yeah.
the B, the capital letter B is actually the pregnant woman. The top part is her breast protruding, and the bottom part, which is supposed to extend a little bit beyond the top, is her pregnant belly. But how come the small letter B doesn't have a top part to it? It only has the bottom part. See, this is what the Quran means by think. You have to become a thinker. See? So the bottom part, the small letters are speaking to the small people that the rulers were ruling over. Those were not the people who were giving birth to new ideas. So they didn't have the capacity for feeding new life and new ideas and new creativity. So they deprived the small letter of the breasts
Mm.
and just left them as the baby
Interesting.
factory. You understand?
Yeah.
So there's a whole lot of meanings that have been inculcated into these concepts that we're talking about.
Mm.
But again, they refused to teach us, the so-called small people or the so-called minorities. I hate that word. Why should I be minor? I'm not a minority. In whose eyes? In Allah's eyes, am I minor? And they are major? No. It's a part of that same system of psychology that was used to hold back a bunch of people who they never intended to come into leadership.
Right.
You see?
Good.
Yeah. So
Mm.
so so your if you look at the letter B again, let's go back to the B, the capital B, and it's a profile. It's also a profile of the human lips,
Mm.
the human lips.
Mm.
but the human lips closed. It's not the human mouth open. That's another letter. But the human mouth closed is B. So I asked myself, well, why would they put that at the end of the word dumb? They don't tell you to pronounce it. It's not
Yeah.
pronounced dumb, it's dumb.
Yeah.
And the word dam, as you know in Arabic, means blood.
Hmm.
Yeah. So once you understand what blood means in their language and their terminology, and you know that the English speaking world put the B after it, it means that whatever that dumb is, it was intended to be silent.
Hmm.
And dam is blood, but blood also represents symbolically the human being's social life, how the social life flows in all of these different directions and all, for all of these different needs that the human life has.
Yeah.
And Nana, I read in one of your papers that you were talking about these four essential areas. You know, it's economics, you know, politics, culture. You know, we have these four basic areas that human beings around the planet have to become involved in if they're going to grow as a society, as a community. So those things have to become silenced. See? And that's what the true meaning for dumb is. It's the silencing of the blood.
Hmm.
And once you silence the blood, the body becomes numb.
Yeah.
See? So you move from dumb to numb. And neither of those mean that you're dead.
Yeah. Yeah.
Dumb means you could be faking or feigning like you're dead. I don't know. What do you mean? Were you there on the night of? No, I don't know what you're talking about. It wasn't me. It might have looked like me. Wasn't me. This man is a primo lawyer, so I know he knows exactly what I'm talking about, right? So that the idea of numbing, which I believe is happening right now. I think it's happening through mass psychosis, Nadeem. You're
Hmm.
speaking of that field that you're about to write a book on. I think what they're doing now is that they are mass hypnotizing everybody in the world who has an iPhone and a cell phone and a 26 screen TV or whatever. They are entraining us. I've never seen people this dumbed down in my life for
Yes.
simple questions.
Yes.
What is a female? What is a woman?
Yeah.
Ah,
Yeah. It's
what?
unbelievable.
It
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
But we know they're not going door to door doing it, so it has to be something coming across your television set and in your music,
Yeah.
especially with the young people. They are
Yeah.
really doing a job on us. So efforts like the ones that we're putting forth, and
Yeah.
when I say we, I'm talking about all of us sitting here,
Yeah.
are essential.
Yeah.
We are absolutely,
So,
Allah says your own selves obligate you.
yeah. Yeah. So actually, it's like the what I call the zombification of humanity, and
Yes,
they're making everybody into robots to serve their ends, right? So, but at the same time, they're brainwashing people into thinking that they're individualistic. That's why they call it iPhone, I this. It makes you think that
yes.
I'm
I,
special, but
independent.
really you're not. You're
Yeah,
just,
I
a
came
robot.
I came up with this. Yeah, but in
Yeah.
reality, they bypassed us a long time ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
See, and the idea of intelligence, and I just want to say this, and then I'll hand the microphone back to you. But the idea of intelligence is to be contrasted with the human intellect.
Mm.
Now, I've read many, many dictionaries, big and small, and every time I went to the word intelligence, it said see intellect. Every time I went to the word intellect, it said see intelligence.
Hmm.
But there was something inside of me telling me these are two different things.
Mm.
And if you trace the way the word was put together, both of these words were put together, it tells on itself what it's actually speaking to. So intelligence, internal, telling or communicating from where? From the gents, from the genes. That
Mm.
Allah has put a latent potential in your genes to be intelligent, but it's latent. You have to condition it, you have to put it in its proper environment
Mm.
after the child is born. Now, after the child is born and the five senses begin to operate in the environment based on the communicate, based on the contact with things in creation, that's the only time that you begin to grow into what's called an intellect, which is a different word. It's the internal election that's taking place when your five senses begin to grow into understanding of things in its environment. You begin to choose. You have to pick and choose then what you're going to eat, what you're not going to eat, what sound you want to be around. You don't want to be around these loud noises. You like the softer noises. You like your mama's voice. And the things that you don't like, you try your best to stay away from. She tries to put
Mm.
something in your mouth, you taste it, so you're making choices. That's what the internal election or the internal choice making is doing. That's your intellect. And that's where they got us because Allah put the fitrah into the intelligence. He put it into your DNA, but it's being overridden by what they are uh, uh, um, causing to happen in your intellect. It's the intellect that has gone wrong. It's not so much the intelligence, although we could make an argument for both cases because, as you both know, there are different layers of genes doing different things. You know, um, the soma cells, different layers of cells, I should have said, but the
Yeah.
soma cells are doing one thing. The parent cells were doing something else, and these people are so, I hate to call them smart, but they're clever. Let's try that word. They are so clever that they know how to program each one of these sections individually. Allah says about Fir'aun that he broke the people up into Shia, right? Into sections. I believe that's talking about the human brain, the human intellect.
Mm-hmm.
And that's his scheme. His
Mm.
scheme is not some guy who died 5,000 years ago in what we are now calling Egypt. That's not the scheme. The breaking up and the making schismatic of the people is that scheme right there that I just outlined, that we're being broken
Yeah.
up systematically. How come black can't get along with white? Why is there such a thing as black people and white people? Who invented that? That's not in the Quran. I don't see Allah calling anybody brown,
Yeah.
red, yellow, purple, or whatever, right? No, we have human qualities, and that's what we
Yeah.
need to get back to.
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, the Quran talks of Allah has created different mountains, red, black, and white,
Yes,
right?
yes.
And it's talking about nature.
It
You
happens
see?
to be the different divisions that they put
So,
humanity
do we
into,
say
didn't
that
it?
a brown mountain is superior than a white mountain? Like
No,
it is
not at
ridiculous.
all. Not
This
at
is what
all.
Allah is trying to tell us that, He's created different variety, right?
Yeah, but remember, the original sociologists broke the world up into those same three colors.
Yeah.
They said there were three races before they
Yeah.
said there were five races.
Yeah.
And they said it was the African, the whole,
But
what is it? Negroid,
yeah.
Caucasoid,
Yeah.
right?
But so this new book that I'm is coming out, the Quantum Traverse. The first part is on how life it developed. Okay, I'm not really going to get into it because once it's published, inshallah, then we'll get into it in detail. But really, the reality is, I mean, the colors don't matter, but the fact is that the original person who was that Allah created, he was dark skinned. He was basically black. And then when they moved into Europe, and they know this now, about 8,000 years ago, then the colors changed, because you
Yes,
need more vitamin D. So this they know this now,
yes,
you know. So how can for example, a white person be a racist because his ancestor was black? It doesn't make any sense, right?
none, none whatsoever.
And of course, the racists don't like this, but this is coming out now.
Yeah.
And this happened around the origination of man happened actually 70,000 years ago. But inshallah, when we get into when the book is out, you can read it and we can
Oh,
we can
please.
discuss
Yeah,
it.
I'd love to have that
Yeah,
conversation
and
for sure.
and
Yeah.
so I think the brother Nana Pong has probably a lot to say about it.
Hey, hey,
I
grab the
am I am
mic, grab the
actually I'm
mic, Nana.
following. This is an interesting, very interesting discussion. But I think on racism, I've thought a lot about racism because when I was growing up in Canada, going to school in Canada, I went to University of Toronto, to Osgoode Hall, to the best schools here. I learned a lot about how people are discriminated against. Of course, I've been following history as well, ancient history, medieval history, and modern history. I can
Yeah.
tell you this, if you get yourselves organized, become very powerful as a nation, then whether you're dark skin or blue skin doesn't really matter. People will come and respect you a lot. And they'll be proud, and you'll be proud that you're blue or green or yellow.
Yes, indeed.
Because you'll be
Yeah.
enjoying your life, because it's not the color that makes you enjoy your life, it's the environment and the
Yeah.
brotherliness
The
and the
quality.
consciousness and the
Yeah.
quality. So all this nonsense about I am superior, I am this is only because of material differences and power differences. If Black people, for example, were enjoying themselves, they were rich and powerful, they had technology, they were going up this and that, would they really care if some green person, some white person, some other color came and said, I'm not like you and I'm better than you? They would just
It
laugh at
wouldn't
that person.
matter.
So get
It
lost.
wouldn't matter. Wouldn't
It
matter.
wouldn't matter.
Yeah.
So,
See,
so the whole thing about
yeah,
color,
yeah,
it's not
yeah,
about color. It's not about color. It's just about material differences, the ability of people to actually have a comfortable life, a luxurious life, and to achieve what you want. I always tell people
yes,
equalities. If you look at the constitution of every nation, they talk about equality. You don't really have equality if you don't have power, because equality is the ability to achieve something, and that comes with energy, it comes with process, it comes with power, it comes with authority. So, what dark-skinned people, feminists, and women, and if we could speak for our little brethren, meaning the animals and the birds and the fish and all, if, what
hmm
we really need is not to say that the colors are equal, but really to make power equal or even greater. You see, it's all about power.
yeah,
So the Quran talks about the nobody's better except the pious, it is
mm,
talking about something which we understand to be authority. That how close you are to God gives you a certain amount of spiritual, moral power, intellectual power. And that is what you need to survive in the world. Unfortunately, because of history and all kinds of problems and continuing misery of our people, they tend to talk in terms of power. But the discussion is about competence. When you want to play football, nobody will look at your color. When you want to go into the moon or build up a ship, nobody will talk about color. If you want to build a car, a phone, a dish, it's all about competence. Can you do it? Let us
yes,
start being competent in areas of
yes,
importance. So if we are doing farming, become the best farmers. If we're playing football, the best footballers. If we're doing engineering, the best engineers. And then you see nobody will talk about your color. People will come and talk about your life, your product, your
yeah,
service,
yeah,
and your money, and your
yeah.
money, and your money.
That's right. That you're going to use to gain more competence.
Of course.
More and more excellence. See, there's nothing wrong with money, nothing wrong with excellence. I mean, pardon, not
No,
excellence. Nothing wrong with money, nothing wrong with these advancements on the part of so-called racial groups. But those advancements do not come until the internal human advances.
exactly.
Slavery would
Yeah.
not have been broken. Discrimination would not have been acted against if something internal was not happening while those terrible things were in the world happening. And
Yeah.
we've been kind of tricked now into believing that the world is still where it was during the 1600s and the 1700s and
No, no,
1800s, and it's not. It
no.
has advanced. In fact, we should be people, the ones right now who are still crying racism and discrimination for whatever reason. They need to go to certain parts of Africa and Asia if they want to know what being poor really is. These people here are not poor, but they're screaming discrimination because I couldn't buy a new pair of $500 sneakers out of this particular store. So I'm going to, I'm going to protest the store because they're
Yeah.
discriminating against me.
Yeah.
No, the whole world, in my opinion, has been rerouted away from native intelligence. You know how people they used to have in the bad guy stories about the guy who robbed a train or whatever, and then he goes out. He has some way of switching the train to a different track at the last minute. So you're going this way, then all of a sudden somebody pulls a lever and the train is going left field, into left field.
Yeah.
That's what I believe has happened to the world because of the mismanagement of terminology. I think the world is ruled by terminology. The world is ruled by language, not by the
Yeah.
gun, not by the bomb, not by the tough guy on the street. The world is ruled first and foremostly by language and the manipulation of language. This is what I've been saying in most of my lectures. Language rules. This is why I believe the
But I
Quran
think
puts such a premium on language and
language
speaks.
is connected. Yes, my brother, language is connected to dialogue, narratives, therefore to intelligence.
Yes, to logic.
And
That's right.
there are three laws. In one of my books, it's called How to Think Like a Lawyer. It's called iLegal. And in that book, I talk about the three universal laws of the world.
Mhm.
And this is very important for those who are not lawyers to understand. Only three laws that you need to teach your children. If they're not going to become lawyers, at least they should know these three laws. The first law, which is connected to what you're talking about, is you have the right to be wise. If you want to be wise, go ahead. Nobody stops you from being wise. Second law, you have the right to be foolish. If you want to be foolish, nobody will stop you from being foolish. Third law, the wise have the right to exploit the foolish, but they must do so legally. Again, I repeat, wise people can exploit foolish people legally. So the whole business of the world is using language, technology, relationships, fear, distractions, drugs, oppression. All these are forms of cheating so that the wise will rule the foolish. You have to decide where you want to be. Do you want to be among the exploited or do you want to be free? If you want to be free, the first thing that you need to know is how the game is structured. Now, one of my books is called Authority as the fifth and the most important factor of production. And the reason why it's very important because you're talking about what they wrote. The new economy, the new world is authored. Everything is coded. And the author is the authority. From
Yeah.
that word author, and I see that's where you play, you understand it. From that word author, they're authoring money. Money is authored. Money
Yeah.
is just a paper thing
It's
authored.
it's
Credit
fiat.
is
Yeah,
authored.
that's right.
Sanctions, regulations, standards, everything is authored. Even the degree that will make you an engineer and a lawyer is authored. Somebody tells you this is what you need to know, and you're coded to be one, and they give you a paper which is authored, which is a license, which gives the permit and sanctions, and everything is authored. So
Yeah.
if you don't understand language, you don't understand intelligence, you don't understand how the system is structured, you don't understand the world is going on, you sit down crying, I'm black, I'm this, I'm that, you will cry forever. It's like this. Malaria is caused by mosquitoes biting a person and then depositing eggs, then which hatch, and then all kinds of problems come. If you are in an infected area, you have two options. One is sit down and cry, oh, mosquitoes are biting me, I'm having malaria, I'm dying, I'm
Mm.
dying, I'm dying. That's what a lot of Black people do. History,
Yeah.
racism, and or what you can do is actually drain the swamp. Get rid of the mosquitoes. Move away from the
Ah,
mosquitoes. Build nets.
that's right.
Get medicine. Do something.
That's right. That's right.
We are not always victims of history. There's something
Yes.
that we can do. But look, it has to do with leadership. One thing that I found out very important is human beings are like sheep. They need shepherds. Like children, they need parents. The leadership must change and become bright and not selfish, but selfless, competent.
Yeah.
And then it must be driven. You cannot be a lazy leader who only comes and talks when the camera is away. It has to be a leader
Mm.
who's really driven to do good. And then the leader must be impersonal. You should not be doing just thinking of yourself and your children, your children's children, but you must think of a society as a whole. Then you get legitimacy. The leader must be superior in what they do. If they're smart, they should be very, very smart. If they're football, they should play excellent, whatever they do. So you see, competence, continuity, superiority,
Hmm.
selflessness,
Hmm.
benefit, and welfare to
Hmm.
people. That's the quality we need for the leaders. And then the leaders will move the people along where they want them to go. If you're
Yes.
having competent leaders,
Hmm.
easily manipulated, who have short-term vision, who don't understand anything, who are easily deceived because the chief deceiver is the devil, and the devil comes along, just gives them a little bit of light, and says, "Ah, I've seen the God." Meantime, what they've seen is the devil. Then the people will be misled. So a lot of liberation movements will never work because the leaders are incompetent and the people are also being led by people who have no authority, who are incompetent. So they're going the wrong way and going circles and circles and circles. It's
Yes.
all about complaints and complaints and complaints. Look, I'll tell you something. It takes only 1% of a group to change a group.
That's
So if you're
right.
100, one can change it. If you're 1,000, 10 can change you. If it's a million, 100 can change you. We need to grow, organize, enable, and secure. Grow, organize, enable, secure is GOES, GOES. Grow, organize, enable, secure. Brilliance, harmonies, devotion, loyalty to God, loyalty to man, brotherliness. We need to grow all these qualities in the children. Then they'll become the leaders and
Yes.
change the world.
But see, all of that is under the rubric of that word you used several times, and that's excellence.
Yes.
If you break that word down, it breaks down into excel. And the EX means to drive out or to bring out. Bring out from where? From the cell, the CELL. So we're back to basic biology now, right? That there's a potential that
Yes.
Allah has put into every cell, and we know that cell began as a unicell, right? Min nafsin wahida, if we're going to use Quranic language, right? That it began as one cell, and then it split, and then we know what happens from there, begins to multiply. But if we don't know what the cell is, we'll never know what the human being is. If we don't know what the potential is that Allah placed in that individual cell to do what it does in its replication, then really going to never know what the purpose of human life is if we're not paying attention to that aspect of biology. And the sciences are the areas of information that most darker people on this planet seem to be kept away from, to become disinterested in science. We're supposed to be interested in football, basketball, baseball, but we're not supposed to be interested in the biology class or in the physics class or in the chemistry class. And that's a part of what has been holding us back also. We have to get our children interested or reinterested because at one point in the history here in America, many of the people, George Washington Carver and others, were very interested in the sciences. And we were driven away from that, you know, as an occupation. And we were just given this whole idea of sports and entertainment, and that was supposed to be the life of the average so-called Black person, the average African American. So we have to be the shepherds, if you will, or the stewards of this new movement. But the new movement has to first include a um, a divergence away from all of this smoke and mirror type life that they've given us. You know, to think that because you made millions of dollars in the boxing ring that you're king of the world. I'm not going to name any names. But he's going through a hard time right now because he thought his money was his God. you know um so we have to be refocused. We need a new vision. I'm hearing it in what you're saying and what both of you are saying. I'm hearing a totally new, fresh, vibrant vision.
Yeah.
And the beautiful thing is that it's not just for the Pakistanis or the Egyptians or the Sudanese, and it's not just for the so-called Black American. It begins by helping you to regulate your ethnic life. Yes. Yeah, because we live as ethnic groups. We have group souls that we're attached to, that I like what she likes. I like fried chicken and I like burgers and that's the American culture. That's the Black culture. We like those things, but that's not the totality of human life. The human life likes things that make all human beings comfortable and progressive. We all want to progress, and that's where you get into what the Quran refers to as striving as in a race towards all that is excellent, towards all that is higher.
Yeah.
Utilitarian, good for not just you, everybody. Because the more goodness grows in the world, it's impossible to segregate people after that. It's impossible to discriminate against people. When I have access to the same thing you have access to, and all it depends on is how much fervor I go into that race with. So the laggards are going to be those who don't try, the ones who don't push, the ones who think they can have it for nothing.
Yeah.
And you can't blame that on racism.
Yeah.
No.
So I just want to say that this whole concept of authority is extremely important that Nana Pong is talking about, and because it's amazing. It doesn't matter which field you're in, or if the authority says this is it, that's it. Like if an authority has been saying 1 + 1 is 3 for centuries, then people believe it. Let's say, for example, geocentrism. For 1,500 years, they followed that nonsense. It was discernible that the sun is at the center. We're going around the sun, but because of authority, and then the church came in, everybody believed in geocentrism. I'm just giving a simple example, right?
Sure.
So the thing is that I always say that the truth is the authority. Authority is not the truth. And if mankind realized that, they'd be becoming competent and excelling, right?
Yes.
Because it's the truth that is the authority, right?
Yes. Yeah.
not the other way around.
That's right. But they don't, you live in a world that they don't want you to know what truth is. And as I said, going back to the early
Yeah,
example, you ask that average guy out there, or average woman out there, what is a woman? And they can't, and she's a judge. She
yeah,
can't tell you what
yeah,
a woman is. So if we don't know what a woman is, we don't know what a man is, we don't really know what a real child, the child now has become the parent, and the parent
yeah,
has, in a
yeah,
sense, become the child. So they've
yeah,
mixed up all of these
yeah,
concepts. That's why I say the whole thing is in the
yeah.
exploitation of the language. The concepts that
Yeah.
we've been taught have to be.
Yeah, and I think that, in history, when things go beyond bounds, like they've gone way beyond bounds right now, then
Mhm.
Allah intervenes in various ways. And that's, so that
Yes,
verse that says that we
checks
will
and
show them our
balances.
signs in the horizon and within themselves until they know that
That's
this is the
right.
truth. So
Yes,
these things are going to change step by step. They're going to
yes,
change based on the ideas that Nana Pong is talking about, what you're talking about, what I'm talking about, what a few others are talking about. I'm
yes,
saying few others because there don't seem to be too many, but there are a few others. So then these things will build up and change society, right?
yes,
Society is not going to change by magic by people doing the same thing, right? And
yes.
suddenly, it changes, right? So, it's going to
Yeah.
happen, inshallah. Just we have to keep at it.
Let me go back to Nana for just one moment. You're very heavy into the concepts that led to a lot of erroneous ideas being put into the world by many well-to-do scientists, including Newton
Yes.
and others. Um, where do you begin to make changes in the ideology, in the scientific ideology, in order to bring it back to what I would call the fitrah, meaning the way Allah intended for it to be? But what are
Yeah.
some of the moves that you have been making and some of the ideas that you have been postulating that are helping to make those corrections? Very serious corrections, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the first thing is when I was at the University of Toronto, first year student, I read some books that said God is a lie. There's no God. And I said, wow, there's no God. And they tried to prove it to me by philosophy and science and things. So I was a little bit confused at first. So I said, let me find out if there's no God and I'll forget God. And if there is a God, I want to know where he is. And through that, we came to the conclusion that there is only one reality, and that is the absolute space of reality. Everybody is contained within this space. It's not a container, but everything is contained within him, it, which we call the absolute presence, the absolute indivisible eternity that you require in order to have reality. Everything moves, but God doesn't move. Everything needs that God, that reality in order to be. From
Yes.
there, we're able to figure out that Einstein's theory of general relativity was wrong, not in terms of what he was talking about calculations, E equals mc squared, but in terms of what he talked about simultaneity of time and. So Nadeem and I started talking about microbitic physics. We invented microbitic physics to solve the problem of the nonsense. There is no God. There is a God, and we can prove it. And also to show relativity is not reality. Reality, it's a reality, it's objective, it's measurable, it's containing, it's continuing, it's sustainable. You feel it, you do it, you enjoy, you eat it, you drink it, you sleep it. Anyway, so from microbitic physics, then we realize that everything is connected to everything. And humanity is the animal, it is the living, it is the dead, it is the angelic, it is the jinn, it is everything.
Yes,
So we are one.
please.
We are really creatures. We are really servants. We are really slaves. We are really beautiful. We are really going somewhere to the God. The Quran says that when the person is loved by God, an angel comes to take his soul, then it says, oh, thou soul at peace, you being pleased
Yes,
with your Lord, and he being pleased
yes,
with you. Welcome to
yes.
thy Lord, welcome to paradise, my paradise.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
it's a wonderful world. So we first start a scientific reality which says there is a God who controls the whole world, and it's called the eternal. Within the eternal are motions, which are relative motions. Some go faster than others, and the speed and the quantities and the directions and the relations create different objects, but we all come from one microwave. And to know this world, all you need to know is if this, then that. If that, then this. Everything is sequence, is rhythm, is music, it's
Sequential, yeah,
sequential.
yeah. Hmm.
Right. So the world is an ordered orchestra run by the director called the God. You can be part of that play, but first you have to find a book and write your name in it. And then perhaps you can allow to edit some of the songs and the plays, but you are not supposed to sleep in the theater. You're not supposed to come and be a spectator. You're supposed to be a
Right.
part of it. That's right.
Yes, a
So we are
participant.
working
Yeah,
on an understanding of the world that links physics to biology, to
yeah,
economics, to philosophy, to religion, to so-called spiritual. There is no distinction between angel and spirit and man and
yeah,
reality. It's all
yeah.
one continuum,
Jinn.
one continuum. And
Yeah.
so now what we're working on is let physics come out. It's connected to biology. In fact, I have a book on biology which would allow us to be able to raise the dead, D-E-A-D, dead. The Quran
I
says
heard
we
you.
quicken the dead. And let me just tell you quickly how we do it
Yes,
every day.
yes,
Every
in
day we
there.
all raise the dead.
Yeah.
You know, every day we raise the dead. Let me show how we do it. Human being, when you were born, you were just a little baby. How did you become big like this? You
Yeah.
became big by eating dead things. And
Yeah.
how, if the dead are really dead, do you become alive by continuing to eat the dead? Because when the dead enter the living, they resurrect them. The living resurrect the dead, become absorbed into the living, and that's how you continue to live. If the living could not re-absorb the dead to make them alive, all of us would be dead.
Yeah,
If
absolutely.
there was an indivisible barrier between the dead and the living, then you eat, nothing will happen. But when you eat the dead, fried, boiled, baked, pounded, the dead become the minerals, the proteins, the
Yeah.
vitamins, the cells that
Yeah.
you form, the molecules. So you can see how the body is the resurrector, the living is the resurrector of the dead. And if we, the
So
bodies, can
beautiful.
do it, what about God? What about God? He says, we quicken the dead in the Quran. Verily, even when you're dead, we'll raise you because we do it every day. You see it in yourself when you eat and then you
Yes.
become alive. Whoever stops eating the dead, whoever stops enjoying and be able to reabsorb the dead is dead. There is no dead and living difference. Anyway, so we're linking biology to physics. And then we come to economics and we realize everything is microbitic. Everything can be changed into everything. What you see as this machine, the so-called car, computer, is just sand melted and put together as wires and processes, then gives you a car, gives you an aeroplane. If humanity goes away, everything returns to the soil. And what you see as an aeroplane or a machine is just sand and soil. We transform it. Everything is transformable. And not only physically, but intellectually, morally, we can all be transformed. We can be transformed by logic, by truth, by brotherliness, by
Beautiful.
kindness. Of course,
Beautiful.
the reverse is also true. You can be destroyed by evil, but we have a narrative now where we're connecting physics to economics, to biology, to philosophy, to God, to humanity, to one brotherliness, to a future. Really, what you see is this world is a magical place made real by the fact that we take it for granted. I repeat, a magical place made real by the fact that we take it for granted. When you wake up, you say, wow, how credible is it that we live in a world that I am here? Why am I here? Who brought me here? How am I sustained? Where am I going? Oh my God. You will not believe it. But if you're sleeping, you will never say like this. You will never think like this. We want people to wake up and see we are really blessed as human beings, that the God will talk to us, will send angels to talk to us, will send
Yeah.
messengers to talk to us. We are not black or white or yellow or green. We
That's
are the
right.
children of God. And if we've been oppressed, we should fight oppression. But we should never think of ourselves as inferior, as this or that color, this or that gender. We should think of ourselves as spirits of the Most High God. And then with knowledge, we will definitely change the world. But we must be driven. We must connect to one another. We must love the God and be always be optimistic. And
Ah,
that's how you
yes.
change the world.
Oh, absolutely. I love it. I love it. I love it. And those are facts. Nadeem, you have
Yes, and
anything
I
you
want
want
to
to
say
say behind
something
it?
to you. I want to say
Yeah.
something to you.
Yes, to me?
See, I
Yes.
am. You see my color. People call me, look at me, and say, "It's a black man." Okay, I'm a happy black man. I am not just. I'm happy to be in the world and to be black. If you are yellow or green or blue, be happy. That's how
Mhm.
God made you.
Yeah.
My brother is Benjamin Bilal. My brother is Nadeem Haque. My
That's right.
brother is Mehran Benai. My brother is Kwame Nkrumah. My brother is Nelson Mandela. My brother
Mhm.
is Benjamin Franklin. My brother is Jesus and
Yeah.
Muhammad and Abraham and
Yeah.
Moses and
That's what I'm
Joseph.
talking
These
about.
are my brothers. What are you talking about?
That's right.
I'm not
Tawheed.
narrowed down by any narrative. I'm not narrowed
That's
down by any
right.
narrative, any
That's right.
nonsense. I don't go by nonsense. I don't believe in it. If you tell me something nonsensical, I just look at you and I ignore you because why? I have my life. My mom told me something. She said they were also born. Everybody that you see was also born. Just like you. So why should you be bothered by someone born just like you? By what authority can someone be your superior? Nobody is
Yeah.
your superior. You know the only superior you have? The
Mm-hmm.
God, the
That's
Allah,
right.
the Yahweh,
Taqwa.
the
Taqwa.
Jehovah, the
That's
Most
right.
High. That
Yes.
is the only person that you should bow down to. Don't bow down to Baal or to some nonsense
Yes.
dressed up as authority. There's only one
Mm-hmm.
authority. La ilaha illallah.
Fact. Khalas. This is wonderful.
Mm.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. The only superiority, if you want to call it that, that a human being has, if we're looking at skin color and people thinking that their skin makes them better than somebody else, the only superiority is actually environmental and the immediate environment. You know, if I'm in Africa, then my dark skin serves me well. If I'm in Europe, then my so-called white skin serves me well. But that's immediate and that's personal. How did that become the measuring stick for judging people all around the world? It doesn't make sense. You use the word sense. It doesn't make sense. I'm
Yeah.
also one who likes to look for the sense in a thing. I've been doing that basically
Yeah.
since I've been 12, 13 years old, looking for what makes sense and what doesn't make sense. And if it doesn't make sense, I'm going to eventually reject it. I'm going to find a way around it, you know, because I understand now as an adult that the human being was created for sense. We created for sense perception, sense evaluation to evaluate the things in our immediate environment that appeal to these five basic senses, and the things that are antagonistic towards these senses. You know, again, they've trained the world to do the exact opposite. The things that we should not want to look at, the
Yeah.
blood, the guts, the murder. They trained us through the movies and the television and the conversation to love those things. We can't wait to go see those things. Somebody, you know, in the news just now, right? Where was it? In Texas somewhere where, you know, a young man got, you know, bludgeoned to death.
Yeah.
And there are people who are celebrating that,
Mm.
you know. So we've been so twisted and turned in the opposite direction of what a human being is that the journey now, the first step of this journey has to be to redefine human,
Yeah.
redefine intelligence, redefine education. We have to take all of these terms that they have twisted and turned and sent in the wrong direction. And it's our obligation as scholars, as learned people to put those concepts back on the right track, heading in the right direction. And the direction at the end of that road, there has to be the pleasure of Allah, the pleasure of God. That has to be the end of the road, not the pleasure of white people, you know, or the pleasure of the African or the Indian or the Asian or what. No, the end of that road has to be the pleasure of Allah. And that takes certain measured, calculated steps. So we can't do it haphazardly like we're attempting to do it now. You know, Black Lives Matter, but we can't do it that way. It's too haphazard. It's too much guesswork in that. And whoever has the strongest influence over the people are going to be the ones who end up with the prize at the end of the road. And that prize will not include you and me.
Yeah.
It will include a new car and a new house, but it won't include me and you.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So we have to begin to reevaluate our tactics and techniques for achieving this justice that I believe you mentioned at the beginning of your delivery.
Yeah.
We're created for justice. The mother who's pregnant for 8, 9, 10 months, justice is that she deliver that child or die. That's justice. That's the kind of justice Malcolm was looking for. That's the kind of justice that whoever said, give me liberty or give me death was looking for. They sound extreme when we hear them, you know, but Malcolm said, by any means necessary. Well, that baby has to be delivered by any means necessary. C-section, natural delivery. But if you keep waiting and waiting and waiting while this baby is incubating within your belly, either one or both of you are going to die. That's the position that I believe so-called Black people have come to right now in 2025. We're at a crossroads where if we don't make certain intelligent decisions concerning our people and the advancement of our people into the future, we're dying already. And I don't just mean a physical death. We know that's there. I'm talking about the most tragic psychological, emotional, and even instinctive death. We're dying instinctively. We don't even have proper instincts anymore for how to save our lives. We don't have a properly functioning R complex brain anymore. We don't have a reptilian brain that's functioning for us. All of it has become retarded because of the mismanagement of these concepts that they have been throwing at us. And they're doing it with such rapidity now that the average one of these people on the street cannot tell the difference between very, very simple concepts, simple concepts. How are we going to build a community? How are we going to build a world if we don't know what a man is and a woman, and if we don't know the true value of people outside of their skin complexion? I've known so-called black people who have been caught in a fire and they lost most of their melanin. Or most of they're pink people now. Do we call them pink just because their surface looks pink? Are they pink people now?
Hmm.
No, that's circumstantial, and that's environmental. How am I going to judge the world based on that metric? I can't. I have to say there has to be something that the source creator created that goes above and beyond this surface stuff,
Yeah.
and then tie into how we are to evaluate and then raise the value of this internal stuff, my sentiments, my thinking capacity, the logic that you speak of, you know. And I believe the English word logic comes from the Quranic word rijal, rajal. I believe that's where the word logic comes from originally, because rijal has to do with walking, and that's what logic involves, taking step by step, as you mentioned earlier, sequentially. If you walk out of place, you're not going to make it to your destination. If you try to get there faster, you catch an Uber along the way. That's not proper, right? So the these words that we're using, and we use maybe about 10 very important words during this conversation, one of them being logic. That's what we need to begin teaching against to our children, but we can't teach them from the vantage point of people who have introduced false concepts of logic. There are many false concepts of logic in the world right now, and we can't continue to raise our children based on falsehoods, you know, based on what the Quran might call batil, that the falsehood has to die. And Allah says that it was ever a thing to die. That was its intention. So look at how weak falsehood is against al haq. The truth is here, and
Hmm.
falsehood vanishes. And it was ever a vanishing thing. That means it really wasn't even real. I think you mentioned that earlier. It's
Yeah.
not even real. So we have to come out of this fake, phony, fictitious world and begin to evaluate the real world, the true world, the world of truth, which will lead us directly to the world of justice. But you have to begin with truth. If you can't accept the truth, you're never going to make it to justice. Black Lives Matter won't get you there. African Congress won't get you there. National Congress won't get you there. All of these things that were just stepping stones along the way of freedom and opportunity, they were just stepping stones. It doesn't mean they were wrong in what they taught us or postulated about these subjects. It only means that these were baby steps leading towards steps that more grown and informed and responsible people need to make and take. That's all that is. And we need to study that systematically and scientifically. We have to get out of this emotional thing. That's the other thing keeping many of our people back in the world, that we are approaching these subjects emotionally, how we feel about it instead of what we think and know about it. We have to come out of that. The human being was created to be a thinker. This aql, beautiful word in Arabic, aql, like a rope, the turban, that keeps things in place. That's what the aql does. Or you take the turban off and you use it to tie your horse so the horse won't get away from you. Well, that's what the aql is. It's an intellect that's designed to operate in a way that won't let the world get away from you, because you're always thinking, evaluating, deducing, you know. what to do and what the proper thing is when you do something. What's the proper way to do it? Not just any old haphazard way. If you leave the mind alone to just wander as a rational process, that'll take you anywhere. That's where I believe Shaitan is on that road. He doesn't care as long as it makes sense to him and he can get his outcome at the end of it. Then he's good with that. He's good with you just being rational. That's the fire he likes to ignite. But for you to be rational and moral, meaning ethical, that's where the human being begins. That yes, rationally, I could take all of this land from these people and I have the power to do it, but morally, I can't do it because my soul won't be satisfied. So if you're not concerned about the outcome of your soul, then you keep doing what these people out here are doing, and you see the way the world has ended up. But if you're concerned about where you're going to end up as a soul, that Jannah you spoke about, enter my Jannah among my ibad, among my workers, then there's a process, a logical, sequential process that you have to follow to end up at that gate. That's the gate I want to be at.
Yeah.
That when I knock, all of Allah's pleasures are there to greet me, Yeah. Yeah, that's not going to happen at the disco. That's not going to happen at the dope house. It's not going to go happen, that's not going to happen when I go buy the reefer and the alcohol. Those are not the proper door. Allah says enter through the proper doors. They
So
enter they enter through the back door. They like entering through your subconscious mind.
yeah.
All of this is really just subconscious conditioning, but they don't want to enter through the front door.
Hmm.
The conscience, and the consciousness.
So I just want to say something about so just as some people have been trying to divide humanity. You see, so what's happened over centuries is that knowledge is integrated and they've divided it, right? So they're saying there's science, there's religion, there's secular, non-secular. So I think
Yeah.
that what we're doing now, for example, you're doing in the linguistic area, and we've tackled a number of areas, is we're showing the integration of everything, the
Yes.
integration of knowledge. So for example, like angels are made of microbits too. So are we, but they're made of lighter microbits. So is that material, or are they material or non-material? The question doesn't arise because we're all made of same particles, right? And then each one of us has this consciousness that arises through microbitic interaction, which we call the soul, but it comes from the consciousness of God. And this is where Iblis made that fatal, he said something very stupid, right? Stupid logic that I'm made from fire, but this your Adam is made from
Right.
clay, min tin.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm superior, but it doesn't make sense because we're all from the consciousness of the creator. So once humanity starts to understand this integrated, you know, way the world has been structured and its purpose, and that there's a next life, which again is made of particles, again is made of microbitic particles, but at a different level. Then where is science? Where is religion? It's all one. It's all one.
That's
You
right.
know. And I think that this is what
That's the unified
the
theory. Yeah.
yeah, sorry, what's that?
That's the unified theory
It is
that
the
they're
unified theory for
speaking of.
everything.
Yes.
Alhamdulillah, we have it. We have it. The matter now is just a matter of just talking about it, like we're talking about it now, is
Mm-hmm.
having conferences, is publishing things, is interconnecting, is finding people, intelligent people to, develop it further, is introducing it in universities, things. And with the help of Allah, that will happen because if it doesn't, mankind is finished. It's really finished because
Yeah.
we've gone way out of line now, right?
Yeah. But
But
I
Allah is
think
going to come
I think
back.
I think
Yeah,
I think we have enough time and circumstances on our way, and with the mercy of Allah, we're going to make it back. Many of
inshallah.
us are going to make it back. If the reason why we're so off track is because someone interfered in the progress bar, in the line of progress, and it really wasn't the fault of the average human, not even
Yeah.
racism. Racism came into the world, and the majority of people that it affected, I believe, were actually innocent people.
Mm,
But they were able to put something on the end of that hook
mm,
that the fish really liked,
yeah.
even though the fish didn't get it, because the majority of whites didn't benefit from racism, not on the way that we think about benefiting from something. They didn't get richer. The majority of white people, they didn't get richer
Mm,
because
mm.
of slavery. The majority weren't even slave owners, that
Yeah.
kind of thing. So there's a language that needs to be dealt with. There's a language environment. And I just want to say this about the Quran, and then I'll let you guys wrap up. Uh, they say that the first word that was revealed to our prophet was Iqra. Now, here's the classic case of language manipulation. First of all, you're dealing with somebody who they say couldn't read.
Hmm.
So why would Allah ask you to do something that he knew you couldn't do? That's the first question. This is just a child's mind thinking on these things. Now, and they never could prove that he had a physical book that he was reading when Allah said Iqra. What did the Prophet's mind go to when he heard Iqra, read, and he said, read what? Where's that? You know, read, I can't read. Now, of course, that's in the lore. That's not in the Quran, what I just said. It never says in the Quran that Muhammad said, I can't read. It just says Iqra, Bismi
Yeah.
Rabbika alladhi khalaq, right? Khalaqa al-insana min alaq, and so forth and so forth. But when you understand what was being said based on what Allah has blessed me to develop as a numetics method for understanding Quranic words, then you'll understand that the word Iqra, Qara'a, is related to the English word, and you're going to like this, Nana, because this is from your country. It's related to Accra. Now, Accra, that's the capital
Yeah,
of Ghana. Now,
that's the capital of Ghana. Yeah.
yeah, all right. So, but what word did they get from that? Agriculture. Agriculture. Ikra is agriculture. How do I know? Because when you look up the word in the dictionary, what does it say? It means to gather, to collect. Those are things you do in agriculture. You don't read in agriculture. You don't see people out there in the plantation fields with books because that's not what they're doing. It only means read because reading involves the process of gathering letters and words so that you can begin to make sense to the akal. If you can't gather letters and put them together to make words that you can string together to create sentences, then you can't read. So the prophet wasn't reading like we think about reading. And if you can't do that, then we consider you to be ignoramus. We consider you to be stupid if you can't read. And then they judge the whole world about who can read and who can't read. And now you have a whole nother layer of discrimination. But it doesn't mean read. It means to collect. Now, what are you collecting? We're collecting right now. We're collecting information. We're collecting concepts. And when you collect those concepts, the job of the farmer is to put like things with like things. This is done in science all of the time. Let me compare this to something that looks like it. Let me compare that to something that functions in almost that same way. And let me see what the outcome of that scientific experiment is. So that really opens up the whole field of what Iqra is speaking to, because it's related to the word acre, A-C-R-E, Iqra. It's related to acre because it's talking about harvesting. Yeah, it's not just talking about the field per se. And we call knowledge fields of knowledge, don't we? Fields of science. So it's in the history of the development of language. But somewhere along the way, somebody decided that we're not going to teach this to the average person. It's too much information. But this is our inheritance. So Allah let it come back through somebody who looked like me. When I look at myself in the mirror, who looks like you guys when you look in the mirror, we're not aristocrats. We're common people who decided to put in the work to get this information. So that's where I am. In case you didn't know, I know you know because you read some of my work, but that's basically where I am, man. And that's where I'd like to take as many people who can get on this train. I'll push them in, I'll shove them in, just get on the train.
Yeah.
See?
It's amazing. It's amazing. It's amazing. Remember last time when you interviewed me, I just briefly mentioned how I discovered that the earth was expanding by just one word in the Quran, Dhahaha.
Yes.
And Dhahaha also means volumetric when the word the is used, and ha has to do with life.
Yeah.
So when the earth expanded, the water that they discovered in 1990s, it's called in ringwoodite. It's in the earth 4 times more than the volume of the oceans. And the earth expanded, then the water came out. And the Quran says the water came from min inside the
Yes,
earth.
men, yes.
But just by one word, dhahaha,
Isn't
I
that
was
something?
able to discover that the earth is expanding. And all the Muslims were not looking at the root word, so they said it looks like an egg because an ostrich
Yeah,
lays
an ostrich
an
egg.
egg, and
Yeah,
they're not
yeah,
looking at the word itself. It means expanding.
yeah,
That's how the
yeah.
ostrich creates its nest, right? By expanding.
Well,
So
Neil deGrasse Tyson he actually sort of confirmed that whole idea of it being shaped like an ostrich egg. He said it's not a perfect circle.
yeah, it's not, but it is not actually. They're mistaking they think that the haha means ostrich egg. It is not
Mhm.
the ostrich egg. It is the way the ostrich creates the nest. It's by expanding, like
Yes,
creating a kind of a semisphere,
yes, yes.
like for its eggs to put the eggs in there.
Got it.
So it means expanding. So actually, the word
Uh-huh.
means expanding. So Allah said that the earth is expanding.
Yes,
And the word da, it has to do with volumetric expansion. And then in the other verse, it says tahaha. And ta has to do with surficial expansion because when volume expands, then surface expands. And
yes.
like the word tariq
Hmm.
means like something, the pathway, right? It
Hmm.
has to do with the 2 dimensions.
Yes.
So the,
Ah,
the, the Quran is like is using terminology that is describing physics or geology even. Do
yeah,
you know what I mean? Because
absolutely. Yeah,
because
yeah,
he designed the earth and he designed the language, so there's perfect
yes.
correlation,
He
right?
knows it. Yeah, and
So
he's doing it. He's
I'm just
using these
saying
words
that
simultaneously. Yeah.
I'm just trying to say that what you're doing is very valuable because it's actually making people look more into the Quranic
Yes.
language itself.
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. I'm thankful. I'm thankful.
Yeah.
No, just in case you didn't know, I'm not even a college graduate. I've never been to college.
Well, I think you went to God's college, or you don't
There
want to
you
say
go.
that.
I knew that would be your conclusion. But
Yeah.
I love my brothers and sisters who are very interested, like yourselves, in
Mm.
higher education because that's where the people are who we need to reach. We've dealt a lot. We spent a lot of time on the people on the street. I'm out of the Nation of Islam, the old Nation of Islam experience of Elijah Muhammad and Malcolm and all of that, Muhammad Ali, and I'm from that genre of people. And we spent a lot of time on the street teaching people. And it was worth it, but it's not valuable for what needs to be done today. Today, we need to reach educators. We need to reach people who have consciously dedicated themselves to learning for a purpose, not just rattling off stuff on the street, not just rapping and that, no, we got to get beyond that. And we have to begin to reach people like yourselves who can take this message, wrap it in your own unique wrapping and presentation and present it to I can't wait to read you guys' books when they come out if they're not out yet. I mean, I live for gaining more and more knowledge and information. This word ilm is not just knowing things. You know, we're talking about Ain, Lam, Mim, simple 3 letters. Ain has to do with the eye or insight, as I would call it, if we're speaking metaphysically and we're talking about insight into something. Lam is the tongue, lisan, which communicates. So look at what this little word is telling us, that it's insight into the communication of something. What is that something? Whatever meme is. And meme means water. And water on the metaphysical level has to do with your moral sensitivities, your ability to make moral decisions that keep you clean. See, that's where the water part comes in. It keeps you clean. It keeps you presentable in the public. That's what knowledge does. It's supposed to do. Now, because they've been swapping out these meanings, it can mean something altogether different in English. But this is why the knowledge and the science of it is preserved in the Quran. So you can never manipulate the Quran out of that fitra-based meaning. While the world's meanings change and everything good is bad and everything bad is good right now, if I see something I like, I say, oh, that's bad, man. Well, when I was a boy, if you said that was bad, I would think that was something bad, bad. And if they look at another child and say, yeah, he's just trying to be, he's so good. He's trying to be so good. That was bad when I was a child, where if they talk to you like that, are you trying to be a goody two shoe? No, get away from us, man. So the world can manipulate language, but the Quran preserves language. The word salat itself means it represents a preservative, a preserving agent. That's where they got the English word salt. Did you know that?
Yeah, you mentioned that before.
Yeah, from the
Yeah.
word salat, from the days of the ancient seafarers. Their meats and their fish would not have made it across the sea if they had not packed them in salt. So imagine if you pack yourself in whatever salat means. You're supposed to be the most preserved human being on this planet if you're following the principles of salat, the real salat, not that fake stuff that they've been selling us for the past 1,000 years. The Zoroastrian rituals. No, that's not the true salat. The true salat is more internal than it is external. The external is just the markers to preserve the wisdom and the science of it. But what you're supposed to be doing as an internal creature is the true preservation of the integrity of what that thing is speaking to. And it's speaking to an elevation, or what science might call an evolution. We're supposed to be growing evolutionarily, see, as the years go by, the decades go by, the 100-year periods go by. We're supposed to be an evolved being, not from some other space, not from some other planet, right here. The human being right here is supposed to evolve. And you can see the word in the word evolve, you can get the word love. So love is a part of that evolution. That's why they want us to hate each other, because they know if you continue to hate each other, you'll never evolve, humanly speaking. You can only evolve when you involve yourself in the principle of loving each other, loving yourself first, loving your immediate family and immediate community people, loving what your community is doing in terms of business and culture and education and all of these other vital areas. You have to learn to love them. I have to love you guys. I've never met you, but I have to love you for what you're doing. And that's how I evolve. That's how I get incrementally better. It's a
Yeah.
wonderful thing when you understand it.
Yeah.
Hmm.
But these days, what happens among Muslim thinkers is that they're at each other's throats if they don't agree on even little matters. And a lot of
Yeah.
egos come in. This has been the
Yeah.
problem, right?
Yeah. It's yeah, egos and jealousy.
Yeah, yeah,
Ego and jealousy, unfortunately.
yeah, yeah.
The word ego and the word egg are related.
Hmm.
They're very, very easy to crack.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah, you remember that guy Humpty Dumpty, right?
yeah,
He sat on a wall,
yeah,
had a
yes.
great fall, and all the
And
king's
nobody can put it
horses.
back together again, right?
No, but look, the wisdom is in what's being said, though. All the king's horses and all the king's
Yeah,
men couldn't put him back together again. It's
yes,
speaking to authority.
yeah,
How authority can sit high up on high up on the saddle, high up on the wall.
yeah,
And he's sitting on a thing that is dividing people, the wall.
yeah,
It's dividing. You can't even see what's on the other side of it. And he's the one ruling. He's the king.
yeah.
And also they're speaking to the same thing. You mentioned sort of and also, speaking to the same thing, but it's speaking to a sunset, not a sunrise.
Hmm.
Innal insana lafi khusr. Certainly the human being is in loss. He's lost and he's in loss. And there's only one thing that can put him back together again. إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ. So beautiful.
Yeah,
See? So those people are going to be lost, and it might be the majority of the world. But Allah says, except for those who have iman, faith, وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ, and amal is the natural counterpart to iman.
hmm.
If you don't put both of those qualities together, you'll never have a mu'min. You'll have people who say they believe, الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا. Those are people who say, I believe. Yeah? But you'll never have a mu'min.
Yeah.
And if you look at what Allah says about the mu'min, it's different than what he's just saying about people who say they believe. Allah says, don't say you believe and you haven't really accepted true faith. You're not this because your name is Muhammad or Abdul Rahman. That's not what this is. Because you got a grandchild named Sultan, that doesn't mean you have real power. So
Yeah.
so this is where we are right now, that the iman has to meet the amal, the work, you know, and it has to do it in a way that is as-salihat. As-salihat represents the coming together of things for the purposes of preserving the integrity of things. Salih means to reconcile, as you know. So isn't the world at that point now where it needs this?
Mm.
Come on, Muslim, where are you? Knock, knock, who's there? The Quran is giving you the answer to the problems of the entire planet, not
Yeah.
just Mecca. You haven't even solved the problems in Mecca.
Yeah. Yeah.
You see?
And it ends in a nice way, right? Because it says, وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. In other words, you're striving for the truth and joining one another. Like what we're doing
Yes,
now. We're joining
yes,
one another, we're
yes,
sharing our ideas. And it takes time and patience, right? So you have to have patience.
absolutely.
And so this is the complete methodology here that's
Yeah.
given.
And see, the beautiful thing is that it's not a punk move.
Yeah.
To say, I'm just going to be patient. I'm just going to have sabr. You're not having sabr because you can't beat the opposition. You're having patience because you're waiting for the opposition to see the light.
Hmm.
See? So it's not these concepts that we've gotten in English, you know, that who join together in a mutual cooperation. That's what we are not doing. With the invention of all of these so-called schools of thought, the Shia, the Sunni, the Ahmadi, the this, the that,
Yeah.
the invention of all of those fake, I call it what it is. It's fake, phony divisions in Al-Islam that are not acceptable to Allah according to the Quran. He said, do not divide yourself into schisms.
Hmm.
So how come we're not talking about that on the international table of Muslims and what's good for Muslim progress in this world? If you don't start there, I don't want to have the rest of the conversation.
Hmm.
You have to be bold enough to say, we need a proclamation to end all of these fake, phony, at least the name
Yeah.
divisions. We're just Muslim. What was Muhammad the Prophet? He was
Yeah.
just he didn't say I'm a
Muslim.
Shiite.
You didn't even say I'm a Sunni. I mean, it doesn't make any sense.
No, no Sunni, no see that stuff
Yeah.
came all the way later, man, and during
Yeah.
the building of the empires. He
Yeah.
wasn't any of that stuff. So if we don't get back to him, we're not following his way in that regard. How are we going to make progress out of this quagmire? We won't. We'll be languishing.
Yeah.
See, the word languish is related to language
Yeah.
because the languishing is in the language. Yeah,
Mm.
and then you become languid
Mm.
and you're too weak to move.
Yeah.
So I'm going to let you guys have the last word.
So, Nana,
I want to
last word.
say,
Last word.
I hope this is not my last word because I'm not
No,
ready
no,
to go
no.
ahead.
No, listen, even right now, I hope I'm not wearing you guys out. You can talk as
No,
much
no,
as you
no, no.
want. Because you're
No,
about
no,
to
I'm
you're about to
just,
make a trip back home, and I
yeah,
want to hear
yeah,
more from you, man. I don't know when the next
yeah,
time I'll hear you. So
yes, inshallah. I
please,
think,
please go on.
yes, I want to say something very simple. And I'm saying this to all my brothers and sisters, whether they're Muslims or Christians or Jews or black or whatever. I found when I came into this world, when I was born, I read a lot, probably read a lot more than most people have ever done would do. So I'm helping them with the knowledge that I have. There is a beautiful God who is one and He's the Most High. He cares about us and He's come to us with revelation, with a world that is orderly, sustaining us. We should look for Him and become His friend. And the second thing that I want to say is that if you work very hard, you should become an authority, competent in what you do, so you can be useful in your field. Therefore, you take care of yourself and your family and the community, whether you're a guild, an association, whatever you do, be very competent, be an authority, and then you be useful to the world and useful to yourself and useful to God. The third thing I want to say is we should work together as brothers and sisters,
Yeah.
regardless of colors and whatever. Nadeem is an Indian, Pakistani, Ugandan. I am an African, Canadian, non-Canadian, non-African. I am all or nothing. And you are Benjamin Bilal in the USA. You're not a Benjamin Bilal in the USA. You're a human being of God, a child of God. All of us have to start thinking, cooperating together as children of God. And fourthly, we should use logic and truth and science in all that we do. Take away ignorance and greed and pride and selfishness and all kinds of short things so that we can actually achieve greater things. And lastly, we should never give up. Never ever give up on the goodness of God and the goodness of man and the goodness of the future. And I believe that the world will get better. We should not just complain, we should change the world. And we should
Yes.
start with education of the children. Let's just choose good books for the children, good programs for the children, good schools, good temples, and good relationships. And the world will change. And we want to be changed as we change the world, not just talk as. We don't want to just talk, we want to
Yes.
change the world.
Yeah.
And I want to thank God and I want to thank you for having this opportunity, creating this forum and going at it. I'm sure you have issues and problems and you still keep on going, frustrations and betrayals, but that's how the world is. And the victor is not the one who didn't have problems, the one who goes forward despite the problems. He's the one that God says, "Oh, thou soul at peace.
Yeah.
You've been pleased with your Lord. Give
Yes.
me pleased with you. Welcome to my paradise."
How
Thank you
beautiful.
very much.
How beautiful. You know, the
Yeah.
reason I mentioned the Surah Al-Asr earlier is because I wanted to say to you that the word Asr is related to the word author and authority,
Yes, I
because the
see.
sun is the
I see.
authority. Yeah, it's the authority in this
Mm-hmm.
galaxy. So when authority
Yeah.
begins to wane, that's when you have these problems of division. That's when you have these problems of
Mm,
inadequate leadership. And I believe that that surah is speaking
mm-hmm.
to that phenomenon, you know.
Mm,
Um, so when we who was it? Ibrahim's father, I think his name was Azar.
Yeah.
It's a related word. It's what happens anytime the sun begins to set on society because of uh, illegitimate rulership. When there are illegitimate leaders, that's the consequence. No matter where you are on the planet, Firaun was an illegitimate leader. These are the leaders that you read about in the Quran, some of them by name, most of them don't have a name. They just have a job description. But they were people who are corrupters of society. And Allah shows you how fast they rise and how much faster they can fall. And then Allah has to start the cycle all over again. But He uses people to rejuvenate people, to rejuvenate people. He doesn't come with his finger and just start changing stuff on the chessboard, moving pieces on the chessboard. He does it through the influence of good people like us who make moves regardless of what the calendar says we should be doing or what the people, the pollsters say we should be doing. We still make efforts towards improving society by reinvigorating ourselves and reabsorbing ourselves in that goodness that you're talking about. And when you do it that way, you can't lose. Not even if you die physically, you have not lost. You have still gained.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm. Thank you very much.
Thank you guys. I appreciate that. And this is an honor, like I said in the beginning, an honor and a privilege and a pleasure for me.
Likewise.
All right.
Thank you. Thank
And
you. We'll keep in touch, and when my
please
book
do.
is out, I'll send it to you. Then we can have a detailed discussion.
I'd
Okay.
appreciate it. And now I'm going to be reaching out to you also because
Yeah.
Allah has been putting in my heart that there's got to be a way of sharing and spreading this Nunetics method for learning in Ghana.
All right. All right. We're actually
Yeah,
running universities in Ghana, so it'll be very easy for us to spread the word.
I have your book actually. I'll give it to him. I'll show it to him. He hasn't seen it
yeah.
yet.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Well, if you give me an address or something, we can. Well, I did through your email. I can email you the PDF. That's
Okay.
not a problem because I want you to become more familiar with what it is we're doing. You know, you won't understand it all from the beginning, of course. Nobody does. But I think you do know just from my spirit, if not from the letter of what I'm saying, that there's something very valuable going on here that needs to be shared. We're obligated actually to share this because it's not mine. It belongs to Allah. The fitrah belongs to Allah, not to me. So if I'm teaching from the fitrah and giving credit to the one to whom credit is due, that one entity, that source, I like to call him the source creator. You know, I don't even like to say Allah so much. I don't like to say Yahweh and Allah. I think those are separating terms also for many people in the world. So I just say the source creator. Whatever, as one scientist said, whatever created all of this, he said it's something great. I don't know who that was. Masao, I forget the scientist, the Japanese scientist that said that. He said, I don't know what made all of this. He said, I can only tell you that it's something great. And I fell in love with that statement after he made that.
Mm.
So I like to say the source creator, whatever that entity or signature frequency or whatever it was. That's the reason we're here now. And that microbit concept,
Mm.
please keep going with that. We need that. And we can be the first to promote it.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's great.
Let's do it, gentlemen. Thank you so much.
Thank you
As
very
I,
much.
Thank you.
I
Okay.
greet
Thank
you in
you.
the
Thank
greetings
you.
of peace. I greet you with peace. Salamun alaikum to you both. Thank you.
Wa
Walaikum salam.
alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
All right. I will email both of
Thank
you
you.
this video when after I
All
do
right.
so. Okay. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Salam.